My husband, Ryan Shepherd, was in a car accident. His body wasn't seriously hurt, but there was some slight bleeding in his brain. Before I saw him, the doctor had already warned me that cerebral bleeding could lead to symptoms like dizziness and memory loss. He told me to be mentally prepared. So when Ryan woke up, looked at me with cold, distant eyes and asked, "Who are you?" I simply smiled gently and said, "Ryan, I'm your wife, Emily Shen. You really don't remember anything?" I softly stroked his arm, even more tender than usual. We were in love for 6 years, married for 2, and in just over a month, our baby will be born. Aren't you excited to become a dad? Ryan glanced at my round belly, and for a second, guilt flashed through his eyes. But he quickly shook his head firmly. No way. Willa and I were childhood sweethearts. We've been together since our first year in high school. There's no way someone like you could have come between us. He turned to Willa Carter, reached his hands out to her and said, "It's always been us, hasn't it? Even in the car accident, we were in it together, taking the impact side by side. We've always shared happiness and hardship." Willa gave an awkward smile, but still held tightly onto Ryan's hands. The noon sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains, bathing the two of them in a soft glow. Dust particles floated in the golden light, making the scene look like a painting. Hazy, dreamlike, just like back in high school when they kissed passionately under the sunset. Back then, they were being romantic while I sat quietly nearby, reading my textbooks and doing practice problems. If a teacher showed up, I'd pretend to tutor them, covering for their relationship. I did that for 3 years. I knew full well I was just tagging along, but I accepted it willingly. Because I was poor, because my parents favored my brother and never valued me. Even though I had the top score in the entire city on the high school entrance exam, they still refused to let me go to school. Luckily, a prestigious private academy had a special program that recruited 10 outstanding students from impoverished families each year. They offered generous scholarships and promised cash awards ranging from tens to hundreds of thousands if we made it into college. That's how I got the chance to continue studying. Good grades should have been a student's greatest asset, but in that school, it meant nothing. That place was built on money and connections. Even the smartest poor student was, at best, destined to become a technician for their children in the future. You can imagine what it was like for me there. Facing all the mocking and discriminatory looks, I remember thinking, I shouldn't have come. I even had a moment where I wanted to run home and let my parents sell me to some rich old man just to be done with it. But I was lucky. Willa took me in. She allowed me to be her and Ryan's sidekick. She once said, "Other girls are too charming. If they hang around Ryan too much, what if they end up seducing him? But someone like you, poor and lowly, even if you're pretty, you're just a man's pet. No rich guy would ever truly love you." I can't even remember what I felt at the time. I only remember she gave me 10,000 yuan. That was my pay for being her maid for 3 years. To most people, 10,000 isn't worth bending over for. But to me, it meant everything. "Why are you still here?" Ryan's brows furrowed tightly, and he sounded annoyed. His voice snapped me out of my memories. I kept my cool and smiled. "All right, I'll head home now. Take good care of yourself." Then I turned to Willa and gave a slight nod with a smile. "Willa, I'll be counting on you these next few days. Thanks for taking care of him." Her eyes showed a trace of pity. "Emily, I'm sorry. It's Ryan and me. We wronged you, but I love him so much. I can't live without him. Please just leave him, okay?" I looked silently at Ryan. He stared at my belly again, hesitation flickering in his eyes. Willa buried her face into his neck, her voice trembling with tears. "Ryan, if I don't have you, I can't go on. You promised me after the crash. You said you'd divorce her and marry me." At her words, Ryan's hesitation vanished. He looked at me coldly and said, "Emily, I don't know what happened between us, but I'm sure of one thing. I could never love you. Let's get a divorce." I felt like laughing. "Willa Carter, do you truly love Ryan Shepherd? Ryan, do you truly not remember anything that happened between us?" The turning point in the fate of the 3 of us came right after the National College entrance exam. I got what I had long dreamed of. I was accepted into Peking University, and I also received the 500,000 yuan award that the school had promised. Even though most of it was snatched away by my parents and my brother, I finally had a little savings of my own. For the first time, I could breathe freely at university. Ryan's academic performance had only ever been average, but he took the international returnee route, one of those backdoor ways to bypass the competition, and ended up getting into a top university as well. Only Willa, despite using every method available to her, ended up with a shockingly low score of 200 on the college entrance exam. In the end, her only option was to study abroad in the UK. At first, Ryan and Willa barely managed to maintain a long-distance relationship. They video called daily, whispered sweet nothings to each other, and every holiday Ryan would fly straight to the UK. But over time, youthful hormones clashed with the strains of long-distance love. Their pride, his as a prince, hers as a princess, meant neither would compromise, and their relationship came to a dramatic and bitter end. Back then, Willa, trying to provoke Ryan, even sent him photos of herself in bed with several white men. She said something that Ryan never forgot. "Stop trying so hard. Your scrawny little body could never satisfy me. I'll never love you again." Ryan was so furious he wanted to fly to the UK and kill her. He was too proud to accept being cheated on like that. Not just once, but over and over. His parents couldn't stop him, but I did. I was the one who held him back with all my strength. To him and Willa, I was nothing more than a tag-along, a loyal little sidekick. But I saw them as friends, because no matter their reasons, they had helped me through my most desperate and impoverished years. I never expected that after all their chaos and destruction, Ryan would end up choosing me as his girlfriend. I asked him why. I remember exactly how dismissive he sounded when he answered, with a look of contempt in his eyes. "The person Willa despises most is you. To her, you'll always be the lowest, most worthless dog. But that's exactly why I want to love you. I want to lift you up. I want her to see that, in my eyes, you're worth more than she ever was. I want her to regret it for the rest of her life." Was I hurt by that? I probably should have been. But I agreed, because the more I saw of the world, the more I understood. Poverty is the hardest gap to overcome. I needed a springboard, a higher starting point, and Ryan was the closest and most accessible one. Now that he's back with Willa, I've once again become the discarded dog. But that's okay. I've already gained the thing I desired most, money and wealth. As for love, I never dared to hope for it. When I agreed to be Ryan's girlfriend in college, I had only one condition: a monthly allowance of 200,000 yuan. Some people called it selling my body, but I never saw it that way. We were a real couple. I wasn't a mistress, and he wasn't a sugar daddy. The allowance was just an added bonus to the relationship. The reason I asked for money was because it was my backup plan. My instincts told me that the moment Willa came back, I'd be kicked to the curb. I was lucky. Willa stayed obsessed with the handsome guys across the ocean, so I kept earning from the relationship while using the money to improve myself. With that money, I hired private tutors to fix my terrible spoken English. Without ever going abroad, I mastered a polished London accent admired by the upper class. With that money, I took one-on-one lessons in Spanish and French. I even talked Ryan into traveling across Europe with me during summer break. The country bumpkin I once was could now switch fluently between 3 foreign languages. With that money, I took etiquette classes from famous instructors to refine my fashion sense, grooming, and social manners. With that money, I could finally make friends freely, no longer afraid to join a dinner party just because I couldn't afford the meal. Most importantly, with that money, I bought a large condo in Beijing in the very first year I earned residency there. As for that residency permit, it was also part of my plan. Originally, my safest option was to take the civil service exam or go to grad school. But when I thought of my family, those bloodsuckers who leached off me, I gave up the idea of a stable government job. That path would have come with endless rules and moral expectations, and I'd be shackled by my birth family forever. But I still needed residency. So, I used my Peking University degree and Ryan's connections to land a job at a government-affiliated institution. I stayed just long enough to get my household registration, then quit, and paid the required compensation. It was shameless, yes, but I had no other choice. I wanted to get rich quickly, and I wanted to be untouchable, even from my own family. The only way was to start my own business. While I threw myself into entrepreneurship and started seeing some success, almost forgetting that Ryan was still technically my boyfriend, he suddenly proposed to me. It was graduation season, the season for breakups. At the time, Ryan never explicitly told me we were breaking up, but he did leave for the UK without saying a word. As for his entangled love and hate with Willa, I didn't care, and I didn't know what happened between them after that. I only knew he returned to China carrying a deep sadness. I assumed things between us were completely over. But then, unexpectedly, he circled back. "Emily," he said, "even though deep down I still feel torn about Willa, even though I don't love you, marry me. I want to make Willa understand that, as long as I choose to, even a woman she once treated like dirt can become a high society wife." If you ask me whether I was willing to be a stand-in, I wouldn't know how to answer. It was a strange, complex feeling, not quite resentment, but not full acceptance either. By then, I was already excellent in many ways with plenty of men pursuing me, but I was clear-eyed about my reality. Compared to the Chi family, I was still just moss on the ground beneath a towering tree. I needed that tree to shelter me. And so, I married him. I married with pomp and flair. Everyone said I had landed a golden husband, that I'd married into wealth and climbed the social ladder. Only I knew that, to me, Ryan was always just my boss. His parents, my so-called in-laws, were also my bosses. In this marriage, dressed in the mask of love, I did everything I could to be the perfect daughter-in-law and wife. Only by playing the role well could I gain more resources and grow my own business empire. Beneath the surface of happiness, I was always waiting for the moment of divorce. Especially after Willa returned to China, I noticed right away how they were tangled up again. First, he stopped coming home at night. Then came arguments with his family. When he wanted a divorce, I wasn't the first person he told. He went to his parents first. Isn't that funny? In his eyes, I never truly mattered. I was never worth his emotional effort. But just because I was willing to divorce didn't mean I'd give up my rights quietly. I wasn't Ryan and Willa's doormat, used and thrown away at will. The only thing that sparked a trace of guilt in Ryan was the fact that